Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Air Vice Marshal Gavin Turnbull. Air Vice Marshal Turnbull will be retiring after 36 illustrious years in the service, including serving as Deputy Chief of the Royal Australian Air Force for the past 2 years. Sir, we would like to take this opportunity to thank you and your family for your service, and we wish you all the very best in the future. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors and students on behalf of the following schools. From New South Wales, Barker Vale Public School, Eltham Public School, North Rocks Public School, Modenville Public School, and Old Benalbo Public School. We also warmly welcome the 409 Squadron Australian Air Force Cadets. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Students, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the hearts of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Flying Officer Francis Mathew Silva. Francis Silva was born on the 26th of June 1922 in Liverpool, England, to Francis and Mary Silva. While he was still a boy, the Silva family moved to Bellevue Hill, a suburb of Sydney. Francis attended Marist Brothers College and St Gregory's College in Campbelltown. After leaving school, he worked briefly as a clerk in the New South Wales Department of Education. In August 1941, at the age of 19, Francis decided to join the war effort. He enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force at No. 2 Recruiting Centre in Sydney. By early the next year, he was training at RAF Station Parks in central New South Wales as part of the Empire Air Training Scheme. The Empire Air Training Scheme was an agreement between the British government and Commonwealth countries to boost the number of aircrew available in Britain. Silva trained as an air observer in Australia before earning his flying badge in March 1942. He sailed to England in August that year and continued his training at Royal Air Force Station Bournemouth, where he trained to become a navigator and passed a course in radio operation. In February 1943, Silva was posted to No. 456 Squadron RAF, which was part of Fighter Command. By this time, the squadron was flying twin-engined Mosquito planes, which fought in a number of roles, including night fighting using radar, daylight raids against German transport in France, and patrolling over the Bay of Biscay. Each Mosquito had an aircraft of two, a pilot and a navigator. Serving as a navigator, Silva was commissioned at the rank of pilot officer in mid-1943. In January 1944, he was promoted to the rank of flying officer. The squadron was based at Fairwood Common in South Wales. Early in 1944, the German bomber arm began what would be its final offensive strike against southern England, known as Operation Steinbock. To help defend against these raids, No. 456 Squadron was moved to a base at Ford, southeast of London. During one of these raids, on the night of 28 April 1944, Silva's Mosquito was scrambled in response to reports of enemy aircraft over the English Channel. His pilot was his good friend and longtime crew comrade, Flying Officer Robert Parlow, who was also from Sydney. After midnight, Silva sent a radio message stating that they were closing in on an enemy aircraft. No further contact was established between the airbase and Silva. Wreckage was recovered from the ocean the next day, but neither man's remains were found. Silva was reported missing in action. Over a year later, Silva's family were notified that his status had changed and he was presumed to have been killed on the 29th of April 1944, flying in an air battle with the enemy. He was 21 years old. Francis Silva is commemorated at Runnymede Memorial in Surrey, England, alongside more than 20,000 Commonwealth airmen and women who lost their lives during the Second World War and have no known grave. Both Francis Silva and Robert Parlow are listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, amongst almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Flying Officer Francis Mathew Silva, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning we will remember them.
We'll remember them. Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening.